everyone. Welcome, and thank you for being here. My name is Aarti Natarajan. I'm the CVP of Engineering in Microsoft Teams. We are here to talk to you about new Teams and how it helps with the speed of how you use the product and how we have a goal of making it easy for you to use the product. I have with me here Kay and Chandra, who are co-presenting with me, and you'll see them talking about different parts of new Teams. So we announced the new Teams GA in October last year. Many of you hopefully have seen the posts. We've had a lot of usage growth since then. More than 75% of our users are now on new Teams. Our goal when we started off to build new Teams was to build an app that was a lot more faster, simpler to use, smarter, and also more flexible. We've met most of these goals in how we've kind of built the product, and we'll talk to you about some of the innovation and some of the efficiencies that are being brought into new Teams. Through every step of the process, we wanted to make sure our goal to make it faster, which was our #1 feedback from all of our users with the current classic Teams, was met. We did independent benchmarking reports along the way, and I'm happy to share that we are about 2x faster in new Teams across all of the core jobs that users do, whether it is launching the app, switching chats and channels, or joining a meeting. And we also use about 50% less memory and resources with the new product. There is a report that came out with GigaOM. There's a link to that. Folks can go take a look at it on the aka.ms/new team site. This is a benchmarking video. You can see some of the efficiencies that we built in. We also tried to streamline a lot of the UX experiences. We built in a lot of new features that were some of the most asked user features. A consistent way to search within the chat and channel with just pressing Control F. We also bring up auto-suggest, where we share, and suggested actions, where we share the most frequently used actions, the most relevant actions for the end user. My favorite feature is the group chat avatar. Not many of you probably realize this, but the current group chat avatars that are created, they use the first 3 people in sorted alphabetical order. With my name starting with 2 A's, I end up being the picture in almost a lot of these profile pictures, because of which now we have a custom group chat avatar, so you can customize your own avatars and not see the same person over and over again. In this demo, we'll share some of the features that we built into new Teams.
Working together has never been easier with a simplified and streamlined Teams experience, ensuring that you stay in the flow across all your chats, meetings, apps, and accounts. With everything you need all in one place, you can focus on what matters most to you. With Teams, you can come together without friction and see everyone eye to eye, even when it's time to present. Now, you can let the conversation come with you, keeping everyone and everything in one place. And connect seamlessly with anyone, even if they're outside of your organization.
When we launched new Teams, a lot of feedback that we got is they kind of didn't find it very familiar. So we also allow you to switch back to the old classic theme if you like the stronger purple, or if you like the new lighter theme, you can stick with the default settings. I'll now hand off to Chandra to talk about some of the work that we've did for enabling cross-org collaboration.
Thank you, Aarti. Hey folks, my name is Chandra Chokla. I'm a Director of Engineering in Microsoft Teams. I work very closely with Arthi and Kay and the rest of the amazing folks back at Microsoft. So I'm going to focus on something that is exclusively available in new Teams. This is the step up in our cross-organizational collaboration and communication capabilities. What we're going to see here is something we call multi-tenant and multi-account support. The advantage of this is many of you may be guests, B2B guests in other organizations, or you may have multiple accounts, work accounts that you're juggling between. In classic Teams, you would have to resort to signing out and signing back in, or having a browser open with multiple accounts, in private sessions and all that. All that's not needed anymore. With new Teams, you can add multiple accounts. All of your guest accounts, guest tenants, as well as multiple accounts are all simultaneously active once you add them. You will get seamlessly notified. You will get incoming calls, incoming texts. You can open up documents. You will get meeting start notifications. It's very seamless. The goal of this is to make sure that you're as productive as possible across your organizational boundaries. We have a short video to show what we mean by this. All right. There you go. That was a very short demo on the multi-tenant, multi-account capabilities. Something that we have just announced 8 days ago is multi-tenant organizational capabilities, where multiple organizations with a higher level of trust between them can now establish MTO relationship, and you can now search for people in that other organization. You can initiate a one-on-one chat. You can initiate group chats or calls. We don't have a demo for this. Come see us after this session if you're interested and curious about it.
Is this something that can be turned off by administrations, or is it just automatic? I mean, we're on GCC, so I don't know if they're going to want, personal accounts and things on it. Can that be turned on and off?
Yes, so personal accounts, yes. To reiterate the question, can we turn off or can the admin control the restrictions on which type of accounts to add into new Teams? Yes, you can. There's something called as sign-in restrictions, where an administrator can define what type of accounts you want to restrict. For example, if you want to restrict people signing into MSA accounts on some devices, you can certainly do that. But by default, it does allow you to sign in into across accounts, and not only across accounts in the commercial cloud, but to the question here, you can add accounts across Microsoft 365 clouds. So if you're a consultant who is working in a company in a commercial cloud, but you're consulting with customers in GCC or GCC High or any of the Gov clouds, now you can add all those accounts and get seamlessly notified incoming calls, texts. All of them work very well. Yes, please.
Do your external companies need to be federated?
Not in this scenario. You can federate them for establishing one-on-one chats. And that would be an external account federation requirement. But for adding an account onto a single device, you don't need any extra additional policies. We have these new capabilities which for cross-organizational collaboration and communication. Please visit aka.ms/new teams for an overview of all of these capabilities. I'm going to switch over to the new Teams journey. And as Arthi shared in the first few slides, we have about 75% plus users who have migrated, who have already seamlessly upgraded over from the classic Teams to the new Teams. So 3 out of 4 people are already using the new Teams. We're getting fantastic feedback. We're able to innovate and iterate faster on this. What you're seeing here is the schedule for how the classic Teams is going to get end of support cycle, and then eventually we'll get into end of availability cycle. We're getting feedback on how we should approach this. I've got some screenshots on what you should expect if you or your customers are still on classic teams. This slide may be a bit dense, but if you have questions, come see us and we'll happily walk you through. One thing I'd like to point out here is the classic teams will become end of support cycle starting July 1st. There's going to be helpful banners and dialogues that will be shown in the app to help admins and end users get a feel for what is going to happen. And the classic teams will become end of availability cycle starting July 2025.
And that includes GCC or no?
That includes all the clouds, yes. All right, so what I'm going to show here is the classic teams. Now, this is a user who, for various reasons, because of organizational policies or any of those configurations, they are still on classic teams. But as you approach July 1st, as the end of support cycle comes on board, you will see that they will start seeing a banner that is inviting them that, hey, look, the new client is now the default client. Please switch over to new teams. And if there's something preventing installation of new teams because you have firewalls or group policy objects which are blocking installation, then this would also point you out in a helpful manner to reach out to your admin and ask for support. And as we get closer, the banner, the conspicuous banner will become a dialogue where it makes it more clear that, hey, the end of support cycle is coming through. So the call to action here is for any of you here who are admins or who have got influence in your organization, please talk to your people who provision teams, make sure that the new teams is deployed. End users can simply toggle into the new teams, seamlessly upgrade, provided you're not blocking the installation of new teams. But if you have group policy objects which are preventing installation of new software, that's totally fine, but just use your software deployment, software deployment configuration like SCCM or Intune or MDM and install new teams so it makes it easier for your customers for your end users to switch over to new teams. There are multiple ways to install. Teams is for folks who are using Office SKU, M365 SKUs, which have Teams bundled in. Teams will get automatically installed. And there's also a direct installer, which we call as Teams Bootstrapper, which will use to bulk install Teams across multiple devices, which the admin can choose to do so. And then end users can certainly go to the downloads page. One question we are asked in various forums is, this new Teams, and what about the unified app that we have announced in March? So it should be a sigh of relief that this new Teams we're talking about is the unified app, where classic Teams will get deprecated, will get end of supported, end of availability. New Teams will start supporting not only multiple accounts for commercial work accounts, it'll also support personal accounts as well. All right, now I'm going to pass the baton over to Kay, who's going to walk us through some excellent work that we have done in the new Teams.
Thank you, Chandra. Hi, everyone. Cool, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the backstory behind some of the design thinking that went into the new Teams. So as you saw, we've done a great job of really improving performance. And in the design world, we've really wanted to think about not just making it performant, but also how we think about making it crafted, how we make it feel smooth and seamless. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is a little bit around our story of how we made load-in sequences and Teams really feel smooth and seamless. So before we started out thinking about what we were going to improve, we really wanted to set a good foundation for how we even go about designing good performance scenarios in Teams. So these 3 principles that we came up with, the first one was really about being crafted from the beginning. And so that's really about thinking about a user who comes to the product. What is it that they see for the first time, and making sure that every piece of UI that we put in front of them is intentional, so we don't arbitrarily loading pieces of UI in random places, but it's really choreographed across the screen. We also wanted to focus on a really key piece, which was don't provide the user with any dead ends. How can we make sure that people can be as productive and as performant as possible? So really removing any speed bumps out of the way for the user where we can. And the third one was really about getting the app in the user's hand as quickly as possible too. So removing any extraneous background processes, any UI that's not essential to the task that they're doing. And so taking this thinking, then we started to think about, okay, well, how do we choreograph a UI? You have all of these different loading components. Our design system's full of all these different pieces of componentry that you can use to use as the UI is loading up. But when you put them together, they don't quite work as well as you think. So what we wanted to do was really be intentional around the choice of components we use and the way that we load the UI in. So we set about creating a kind of a methodology for how we decide when and where we bring different loading UI in and what our thought is behind that. And so our first tenet is really no loading is the best kind of loading. So if we can load stuff in within 1 to 2 seconds, we don't show anything. We just get the app straight in the user's hand. The next one is around avoiding layout shifts and style shifts. So, you'll arbitrarily sometimes see skeleton UI just kind of plonked in the page, but then when things load in, there's no content to load, or things shift around and accidental misclicks happen. So we really wanted to be really intentional around when we use skeleton UI. And so whenever we do choose to use that, it's really around, I know the shape of the content that's loading in, and I can be confident that that content's going to be the stuff that I see. The third piece was really around a meaningful loading sequence. And so as I was talking about earlier, thinking about choreographing and sequencing when UI pieces come in as they're available. So thinking about loading things in left to right or right to left, depending on what language you're using, but really making sure that that UI feels really crafted and seamless. And then the final tenet that we had was really around no dead ends and no speed bumps. So in this example, if there's a background process happening, I can go and do something else while that thing completes. I'm notified that that thing's completed, and then I go back to the task. So really trying to make sure that we can keep users in the flow of what they're doing. And so we outlined a list of kind of things that we see as detractors when we think about loading experiences that don't really feel polished, that feel clunky. And so thinking about trying to avoid unexpected layout shifts and style shifts, repetitive rendering where things kind of keep double loading in, blank screens where a user can't do anything, inappropriate usage of loading UX, so trying to pull spinners out where they're not in the right place. Same with skeleton UI, avoiding render flashing. And so all of these things were kind of lenses that we looked at in our experience that we wanted to go through and try and improve. So we took all of our key scenarios in Teams, and we actually painstakingly went through each snapshot and looked at how this UI loads in. And so this is an example of where we were a little while ago before we started this work. And you can kind of see how different pieces of the UI load in at different times. Things shift around, stuff disappears. And so you can kind of see how all these little paper cuts, and we outlined for each different frame where these things were happening, kind of create an experience that's not optimal. And so what did we improve? So looking forwards today, going back to that principle of no loading is the best loading, really getting to a point where we can create a much more seamless and performant experience. So shifting gears, different topic, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we really thought about how to make our keyboarding model a much more efficient experience for our users. So basically making sure that users can be as efficient at habituating and as understandable as they can using the keyboard model in Teams. So back in 2021, we ran a series of accessibility, usability studies for our users using assistive technology, so using keyboard and screen reader. And we really wanted to understand what the experience was like for them using Teams. And the feedback wasn't great. We heard that the experience was frustrating, it was difficult, it was cumbersome. And so when we looked at it, we were like, okay, we really need to dig in to understand what the problems are here. And so from this body of research, we had these 3 accessibility principles that emerged. And that was really from the biggest pain points that we saw from our research. So it was really inefficient to complete the core tasks in Teams. We were not habituating, we weren't predictable from app to app, or the way that we were building controls and patterns was inconsistent. We weren't understandable. The language we used in our screen readers was either overly verbose or under verbose. Some of the terminology that we were using was not clear. So we really wanted to double tap in. If we can fix these three things, we can fix the majority of usability issues in Teams. But one that we really wanted to double tap on was efficiency. So making sure that anyone using Teams can do the top jobs that Teams is there to do really quickly. So I can send a message, I can reply, I can triage, I can do all those things in a very, very quick manner. And so fast forward to Teams in 2023, what did we improve? And so I'm just going to walk you through our new keyboarding model that we've improved. So I land in the chat app. I can use spacebar, which moves my focus directly into my message list. From there, I can use my arrow keys to move between my messages. And I can easily get back to my chat list just using escape, so no need to tabulate around the UI. Then I can use enter if I want to quickly reply, which moves my focus directly into the composer. And I can very quickly move back to my chat list using escape. And then I can use my arrow keys to move through my chat list. And then this model is replicated in our activity feed. So from the activity feed, I can hit spacebar. My focus moves into my message list. I can arrow through my message list, escape to go back, enter keys to move back to compose, escape to move back to that list, arrow keys, and again, this is repeated inside of channels too. So exactly the same model, space to move into my posts, arrow keys to move between those posts, escape to move back to my Teams list, and arrowing again. And we've also introduced contextual help. So from anywhere in the app, using control period, you can bring up the shortcuts that are related to the area that you're in, if you're not familiar with those. So it's a nice way to really quickly get an idea of all the different efficiencies that I can use using our keyboarding from Teams. And so what are the top takeaways from this? So efficiency. We've created a model where we can just use one keystroke to move around large parts of the app, which makes it much more efficient to do those core tasks. We've made it more habituating. So activity, channels, chats, all use the same keyboard model. So it's really easy to learn the paradigm for how to use Teams. And then the final piece is understandable, it's intuitive. We use 4 sort of common keyboard strokes to use the app. And so the user feedback that we've heard so far, it's been great. We've seen huge improvements in productivity, and it's made people's daily lives better using Teams. So thank you, I appreciate it.
We're here to take any questions. We'll take any questions that folks may want to have. We can talk about new Teams or anything else related to Teams that you've not had a chance. Go ahead, please.
Is there a reason why some people are kind of stuck with 4 users in one window instead of how it works when you have 8 and 9?
So I will say check on the view settings. There's a lot of meeting views that we provide. There's the grid mode, there's the dynamic view. Are you seeing it restricted to 4 in all of them, or is it just a couple of them?
So some of our users see 4, some of them see more than 4.
I see.
I used to take it, and they said something about how the specs of your machine can dictate what you see on your screen. But we all have the same, 32 gig of RAM, identical, whatever, but it's not the same for everybody.
We'll circle back on that. Is that a thing you're seeing with new Teams or classic Teams or both? Okay. We'll check in
We're
on
happy to catch up with you after
Yeah.
this session to understand more.
Yeah, sorry, I can't see raised hands.
I'm a guest in the Microsoft team, right? Sometimes when I join Microsoft calls, I'm seen as an unknown user. Is that a big comment?
That is definitely a bug. So there is a valid case where you see unknown users, which is when a particular user leaves the company, after a certain period of time, when we go and wipe out all of their data from our systems, you'd end up seeing an unknown user transition state. But that should only happen if once people have been left, who have left the organization. So we know about cases where people are hitting it. We've been actively trying to reduce that. That is one of our key metric scenarios that we track. We made a lot of improvements, but we know there are still a few cases where people are hitting it. There are cases sometimes when we try to fetch the profile information and you have a bad network and it fails, it accidentally ends up caching the wrong value. So, well, we're working on that. Yes, please.
How do you keep up with all the different versions? We are already on the new teams and we got a new version, but you don't know what is new in that kind of release notes. You have to know what's new.
Yeah.
It's very general.
Uh-huh.
How do we know what has changes in particular versions?
Actually, that's a great question. I will say we need to do a better job on like you doing the change management as we update the build version and like release new features. Sometimes we do a good job on specific features where we know it's been very well used, but often not. I think that is one of the areas we need to do way better in. So that's...
In the message center, you get so much messages.
Yes,
you don't know.
absolutely.
And even yet there is not stated in which version
Yes.
it will come.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think...
fair feedback.
Yeah, we do. We acknowledge that. We recognize that, a lot of times we do the posts in these message centers, but that's not where the users are. We do coach marks, which sometimes show this pop-up with a pointy arrow saying, hey, try this new feature. But that is usually during the, once you switched in, when you start using the newer updated version, you'll see kind of coach marks come into play as and when you use a product. But there isn't a consistent place where you can go and find, hey, I'm just curious, I want to know what all is new.
Yeah.
We don't do a great job at it.
Yeah.
We have 40,000 users, so we want to inform them up front.
Absolutely.
And at the end,
Absolutely.
We want to make sure the security is still in place. So
You're right.
there aren't no changes with our security part. So, yeah, it would be great if you make some improvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tell you that just to add to what Aarti said, we're making active investments on this, understanding what needs to be shown. We don't want to overload the user with 10 things that shipped every week. But at the same time, we want to understand what will make sense for the user. If you're on Windows, you get a different set of what's new. If you're on Mac, you get a different set of what's new. Your feedback is understood, is something that we're working on.
Cool, thank you.
So if I could add to that, coach marks are not helpful if we're seeing them for the first time as our users are.
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah. So your feedback is you, on the admin side or who is managing the tenant, you want to have a heads up on...
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I just also want to add real quick, for the service degradation messages, like if somebody, it always says new teams being impacted, but we don't know exactly what version of the clients have been impacted because, version specific.
Yeah, so usually when there is a service-related outage, it'll typically impact both new teams and classic teams, unless it's a bug within the new teams client that somehow makes it worse. The most of the MC posts or the service posts that we try to do, we make sure we qualify if it is impacting a specific version and above. If it's not, I think it's safe to assume that it's impacting all versions of the client that's out there.
Yeah, we're making active improvements in the resiliency of the client,
Yes.
And also targeted messages about which functionality is regressed, and when it comes back online. So also tell the user that it's back online now.
My organization uses the monthly enterprise channel. Is there a day when new teams will be rolled out with that? I believe we were still seeing that classic teams is being installed. When we install that on new computers and then it kind of upgrades to new teams, is new teams going to be ready?
Yeah, so Teams is part of all of the channels right now. So if you're on the current channel, which is a monthly channel, then new Teams does get installed unless you have used the Office deployment kit to block installation of new Teams. So if no changes have happened, if you're using the plain vanilla Office Pro Plus deployment, then you get new Teams installed. It's not active, but it's installed and ready to go. So when the user says, I'm ready, I want to try new Teams, it's a one-click switch over to new Teams. But we're in a phase right now, as I was showing you in this multicolor calendar that slide, we're in this phase of new Teams journey where every user in commercial cloud will see at least the toggle at the top left of the app that says try new Teams. And then very soon we're going to move into the phase where every user who is still on Classic will be seeing a dialog that says your organization now has moved to new teams as the default. So unless there are blocks that are restrictions that the admin has applied to the device, users will see a very smooth upgrade.
Is there any limitations of new teams in GCC? Well, I mean, will all the options, all the features be available in GCC? I mean, right now, we're sitting with the toggle, so we do have the option to, use new teams. So we'll get all the new features as they come out for commercial.
So feature parity-wise, we are on parity with the Classic Teams client, except in those features that we explicitly made a choice to deprecate, some of which we're actually bringing back. VDI is still work in progress. We have a separate roadmap for VDI because that takes extra effort for us to make sure that that is working seamlessly with all of our VDI partners. So that has a slightly different roadmap across.
It's a little thing in the corner that doesn't apply to GCC.
There's a different schedule for GovClouds, but it's largely the same phasing. So the phasing is users will see the toggle first, so they can try out. These are the adopters who are like, I'm really excited about new teams. I want to kick the tires, right? And then we move to the next phase, which is the organization says, no, I want my customers, I want my users on new teams. Then we go to the third phase, which is going to be very soon, which is you have to use new teams because the Classic Teams is now end of support. So we're going to be in that phase. With GovClouds, with GCC especially, we have now shifting over from the toggle over to organizations requiring new teams.
So if you go to aka.ms new teams, there we are updating the updated schedules almost regularly over there. You will see more clarity on VDI dates posted there. There's already dates posted for each of the different government clouds. We just didn't have the space to put it all in this one slide here. But the portal site has all the information.
We always get things like months later.
Oh, that's changing with new teams. So one of the things we did as part of the new architecture in new teams is we're going to be much more current than ever before. So the feature rollouts, the disparity between commercial and the GovClouds is going to be diminishing, already diminished, and it's going to keep diminishing.
Is that just teams or all that?
Definitely for teams. I'm assuming that for Office 365, for Microsoft 365, the general intention is to keep our Gov customers as close to parity with commercial as possible.
That would be appreciated.
Does the timeline show end of availability this year?
This year, that is.
End of availability is July 25. End of support is July 24 this year.
Okay, that's availability. This is next year?
So the Classic Teams end of availability is July plus. Actually, there's a typo there. It's end of support. End of support.
Yeah.
You're right. But the site is updated. I'm sorry, I'm late in updating the slide, but the website is updated. So the most current information is if you go to AKMS/new teams and you see the Learn More button here, it tells you the latest across all the clouds. So thanks for catching that. It's not availability. It is still, you can still use new teams, the Classic Teams in July, post-July, but it will be unsupported, meaning if you run into issues, then we won't be rushing to address them. The priority is to ship new features, stability, reliability, and performance on the new client. Yes, please.
Is autocorrect ever going to be available on Teams?
Spell check?
Is autocorrect ever going to be available on Teams or just spell check?
Right now, it's just spell check, but we are working on having a much more powerful compose scenario that will fix what you're asking for. I can't share the timelines, but we understand that right now what we have is not remotely close
we feel
to
the pain,
how it should be, even within how we use the product.
Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely something we're working on.
Can I get a show of hands here as we're waiting for the next question? How many of you are still on Classic Teams? Or your organizations are on Classic Teams? I see. So I see three participants here.
We're next because we're not quite sure of how great the uninstall option is going to be until Microsoft performs it. So we're waiting until you with the toggle. And that's a product support specialist from Microsoft who's told us not to do that because of the issues that it causes. If we're trying to uninstall it, we're going to switch on Classic. Push everybody to Teams.
Yeah, so I appreciate the feedback that product support gave you, but at the same time, the end of support is coming in pretty soon, right? It's in about 2.5 months. What I highly recommend is get a significant chunk of your users on new teams. If you run into issues, there is still an option to toggle back to Classic, but it also gives us valuable telemetry. You can file support tickets on us. What I'm hoping to avoid is for all of you or your users to get to end of support in July, then try new teams, and you run into issues deploying new teams or some configuration of firewalls, antivirus, anything that is blocking your organization, but your customers, your own users are using Classic Teams in an unsupported manner.
Yeah, we can't let our users be down while whatever's happening, trying to uninstall Classic occurs and causing issues.
So here's one recommendation I would make. At this point, it's super important for us to for your organization to be sure that new teams actually works for you, because there will be a point where we'll go yank Classic Teams out. Okay, so you have a percentage. Okay, great.
That's great.
Okay.
You got it. You got it. Yeah, so you're on the Microsoft-controlled policy version here.
Okay.
I appreciate that. That's the right configuration to be in.
Just really quickly, so we kind of touch on the same thing. So when new Teams got installed, we were informed that 14 days after the installation, the Teams was supposed to uninstall. However, some of ours did, some of ours didn't.
Yeah.
And the only way to fully remove the tenant was to uninstall the machine-wide installer, which also came with a lot of issues of trying to install these scripts, or basically we had to push out an uninstall through SCCM or Intune, depending on how we did it. Is there a reason why someone would uninstall?
Yeah. This is a great feedback. So the question here is that on some of the machines, they have seen the Classic Teams get uninstalled as designed, and some other machines, they have not seen the Classic Teams get uninstalled. So they had to do custom scripts to uninstall the Classic Teams. So your observation is 100% right. We had an original goal of uninstalling the Classic Teams 14 days after new Teams becomes the client for your organization. That policy changed. We tweaked it. Now it's at 30 days of a wait time before we remove Classic Teams. So you may be catching us in the tail end of that, where we're waiting for extra time. So if users run into configuration issues, any other performance issues on the functionality issues on the new client, then they still have an option to switch back to the client. How many of you actually feel the crafts improvement polish that we have done in the new Teams? Show of hands. Excellent. What are some things that you absolutely love about this craft in the new client?
OneDrive, people search.
Sweet.
Absolutely like the top thing that our users love.
People search.
Like when you go into the OneDrive app in new Teams,
Uh-huh.
and then you can browse by people.
Oh, I see.
See all
Okay.
your they would love that.
Okay.
Love it.
Great. Thank you for the feedback. How about others?
Speed has definitely improved.
What has improved, sorry?
The speed.
Yeah.
The performance of the app? Glad you appreciate it. What about you, sir?
Search in the context of meetings and Teams, where you can use it from Microsoft Teams as well. And also during the main browser, the search work tab, and then you can navigate on all the correspondence you have, also with the documents and tools around it. Nice search for Microsoft Teams and SharePoint users.
Cool.
Very nice. Thank you.
The other one is Copilot, the chat summarization, especially for long chat, exploding chats while you're on a call, and then just summarize. So that productivity.
That's cool. Is there things that you don't like about it?
Kind of buggy sometimes
Uh-huh.
when you're on a video call.
Okay.
And I mean, you'll just be on a call and it won't recognize the camera, even though you just went from one call to another call.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times there's like 3 minutes where it's like, wait, let me see if I can get my camera to work. Oh, hold on, let me do this. So we do find it buggier in the video call space than in class.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, same thing that I mentioned earlier. where
This is video.
The video and,
Yeah.
the uninstall.
Cool.
I've noticed a lot of people unintentionally oversharing because they forget to share windows open.
I see.
Uh-huh.
It's displayed now, and they'll go about doing their regular business after they're sharing, whether it's checking emails or whatnot. And that experience is definitely a learning curve for the users.
Okay. I think it's similar to Classic 2, but I think that's definitely a thing we need to see how to make
Yeah.
our product better in,
Yeah, you bring up a very good privacy
Time,
concern
yeah,
there as well.
yeah.
In the new Teams client, what we did is if you're sharing your screen, you would see a presentation toolbar, sharing toolbar stuck at the top of the screen. That was great for people to always recognize that you're sharing your screen, be mindful and watchful. It also came at the cost of usability where people felt like that it was distracting. So we're trying to balance find the right balance there where we want to tell the user, especially the person who is sharing, that, mindful.
I believe on classic Teams, it was called Files.
Yes.
You would click and go, a lot of our users click that to go to their SharePoint system file. And on new Teams, it's called
OneDrive. Yes.
So it's been a bit of confusion that users have to click OneDrive to go to their SharePoint sites. I'm just wondering if maybe you can talk to me, what was the decision of calling it OneDrive instead of Files?
I think it was brand consistency. They wanted to make sure that every place where you can access your files, it's through OneDrive experience. So it is to kind of build more brand awareness and brand consistency on that.
Yeah, OneDrive is also a superset, because it contains your personal OneDrive files as well as your SharePoint files. OneDrive for Business and OneDrive for Business and SharePoint. So the OneDrive brand was closely resonating to files across your personal space as well as your workspace.
I feel like us or people in IT get that or adjacent, but then the actual end users, they're used to having the OneDrive app, right?
They're fair.
Saying OneDrive, and it's like, I use this to go to SharePoint. So.
Yeah.
That's fair feedback.
I teach all of these apps in my organization, and I make sure I start with the web version of OneDrive, and then when I switch over to Teams, I explain to them, all of that. So maybe you'll have the trainers or whatever.
That's another one that just suddenly appeared, like actually mid-demo for me. I'm like,
I see.
oh, now we have a OneDrive app. I know, right? It's like, oh, let's look and see what this does.
Yes, we should have done a better job at
Yeah.
the change management there. Absolutely. Yes, going.
I think this is something that is an annoyance that's probably in classic and new Teams as well. But when you're presenting and you're sharing, the pop-up that appears at the top, it is so hard to let that retract.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you have to unshare, especially when you're in a browser.
Right, for the tabs.
It's awful.
There is improvements coming in that space. We understand the feedback, totally understand the feedback. There's improvements coming in that space.
I can never figure out how to get it. It just kind of goes away whenever it wants.
Yeah. It's something.
Similarly, if somebody's sharing their screen and you request access to control it, so you can't see it on your end. So sometimes when I'm helping the user troubleshoot things, I'll try to put it in a tab and I accidentally hit the stop sharing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, definitely usability things we have to work on.
Yeah, we're going to count on Kay to help lead that effort
Yes.
to simplify and make it more usable. Fair feedback. Thanks for that. Somebody here had feedback as well. There was a raised hand.
Bold?
But it's super minor, but it's distracting. Because sometimes like there's dozens of chats coming in, and I don't want to look at that chat right now because my tool, but the icons keep coming in, and like if you have your taskbar in, it launches it up, and so you go in there and actually click on it and click back out.
So you're saying when your chat is muted, you're still getting the notification counter going up? Or do you see the toes?
It flashes yellow. You know,
Oh.
like, the message.
Oh,
Yeah,
Windows taskbar.
that sounds like a bug on our side.
yeah.
We'll look at it.
Good feedback. Have you provided this feedback already? My recommendation is if you open up the Teams app, you will see triple dot right beside your profile, and then you click on Help and give feature suggestions. And then that goes into a pool of feedback that we're getting that helps us stack rank and prioritize, get fixes out as soon as we can.
But we got it now.
That actually, and sorry if I missed this, I accidentally went to the wrong room at the beginning. But when or why are now all of my calendar invitations popping into my activity feed? This just started happening a couple of weeks ago, and everybody's like, what is this? It's a lot of noise.
It's on by default.
It is, we can turn it off.
Yes.
Okay, sorry for missing that.
No, we didn't talk about it
We
today.
didn't talk about it now.
Yeah.
So is your question more around you did not know this was coming, or do you find that distracting? What was it?
Both. We
Both?
didn't know what's coming, and then our users are finding it to be a lot of extra noise in the Teams.
Maybe have it not be default, it didn't have to be an option.
I think, we'll have to do trade-offs and balances. I think going back to the change management point, as we introduced the feature, we could have done a better job of like popping up, a coach mark of sorts over there saying, hey, calendar items are showing up. Do you want to keep them on or turn them off? So it's easy for users to figure out what they really want. We just need to go do that part.
I would like to see the minutia of changes and, we can view them if we want instead of
Sure.
deciding, well, you don't need to do this because it's so minor. So give us the opportunity to, see even the minor changes.
Good feedback.
Is it a user setting, or can you set it for team-wide?
I think it's a user setting. I don't think it's a tenant-wide setting.
Is that GA? I got it because I was in private preview.
I think it's still in private preview right now. It is private. It's in tap. I think it's in tap, but
I don't think I'm tapped.
you don't think it's tap?
Well, maybe we got tapped and we didn't know it.
It may have started rolling out too, because I know the feature is rolling out, but I just don't know exactly which ring it's in right now.
Your feedback about being able to at least know when features are rolling out as a heads up, I think it's well received. It's part of our change management improvements that we're thinking of. Whether we make it into a policy that is tenant level or per user setting, what's the default value, that's something that will change by the feature, but feedback understood.
You meet now, are there going to be any upcoming changes to that? Because you have to a lot of times send users a message saying, hey, hop on, because it's easy to miss.
Yeah. So I think it also shows up in the chat list that there is a huddle going on that right now. But there's definitely improvements we have to make to improve the discoverability. We're just getting the initial version of it out, so we're seeking feedback to see what are the things that they'd like to see. And that is definitely one of the feedbacks we ourselves have provided internally too.
Yeah, you all want to see what we can break.
That's right.
And I do know it probably feels like we're beating you up a little bit right now, but I will say that your initial documentation of the change in the new teams and the purity was fantastic.
Okay.
And we used that quite a bit as we were kind of guiding our users and our leadership through what the journey was going to be like. So I just wanted to give you kudos to that. It seems to have, as you're getting more mature, it's not as updated, but it was spot on.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And don't worry about beating us up. We just want to hear your feedback so
That's
we
right.
can, make sure the right investments are happening with all of our different teams.
And as an international company, we really appreciate schedule set.
Great. Awesome. It is one of our favorite inclusivity features that we've built in, especially in this hybrid world where, a lot of people work from home in different time zones, and almost every meeting spans like 5 different countries.
We still have 7 minutes. We were going to hang out here. If you have any questions, you want to deep dive on a certain topic, absolutely feel free to come over.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.